What is the craziest secret you found out? Story 1. My grandma announced to the family on Xmas Eve several years ago that my uncle, 58 at the time, oldest of 4, had a different dad and only told us because his real dad was about to die after she had been sneaking off to take care of him for the 6 months prior. Then she kicked everybody out of the house. Reply. Son, she said, have I got a little story for you? Reply 2. This is a family story. I wasn't born for this. My great-grandmother was divorced as a Catholic in 1914. She never told my grandmother until they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary and my grandmother was 52. No one knows anything about my real great-grandfather. Story 2. Not me, a friend at work about 20 years ago. She was older than me, but we were good work friends. Her father had passed several years earlier, and when her mother passed, her brother and her would take the weekends to clean out the house to sell it. They found a box in the attic with piles of Polaroid pictures, 8mm movies and VHS tapes. The pictures were of their parents and their close friends, 2 other couples whom she'd known since birth. The couples were lifelong friends and the kids all grew up together. They vacationed together, spent holidays together, and had a lot of sleepovers over the years. All of the pictures were of the couples having sex together, with each other, etc., and looked like they spanned decades. She assumed the tapes and the movies were all the same. She and her brother had no desire to find out. She had no idea if any of the other couple's kids had any idea. She and her brother never suspected that their parents were swingers with their close friends. They burned everything and decided to not mention anything to the rest of the family and the kids of the other couples. Reply. I went to an estate sale a few months back. It looked like a 1980s time capsule. The bedroom had a huge round bed with a red satin cover with a huge round mirror on the ceiling, old video equipment on the dresser and boxes of old VHS tapes with handwritten labels. It just felt so weird and icky. Like if you had a sex dungeon in 1985, maybe tidy it up in the next 35 years? Reply 2. I would recommend a DNA test. Story 3. I witnessed a man confessing to his wife he's gay and sleeping with his ex-wife's 21-year-old stepson on a plane. Yes, this man has been married to women twice and is now having sex with his ex-wife's new partner's son. Reply. I wonder if it was a, if you don't tell her, I will, kind of situation. Like she was going to hear it from someone else as soon as they landed, so he wanted to be the one to tell her. That's the only way this makes sense. Story 4. I was looking to get an athletic scholarship in high school and so I never drank. I also had a minivan. These 2 facts meant I was the DD. One night, I loaded the van up with a group of drunkards after a party. I dropped some people off at home but a few of my friends wanted to go to McDonald's. We're sitting in the van eating our food when somebody asks, "Whose phone is this?" They go through the messages and find out it belongs to our friend, Brian. As they read the messages, they uncover that Brian is in a secret relationship with his best friend's mother and has gotten her pregnant. She ended up having the baby. We were 17 at the time. Looking back, we should have said something but we never did, and as far as I know this is still a secret. Reply. I'm impressed that 17-yo can actually keep a secret. I feel like that would have spread by gossiping so quickly in my high school. Reply 2. Acquaintance of mine's father died and a month or 2 later the son's friend started massively flirting with the grieving widow. Like, a 19-year-old trying to get it on with a 48-year-old woman, who was his friend's mother, who had just buried her husband. That level of horny is just incomprehensible to me. Story 5. My mother told me I suffered from hypoxia during birth to give me a reason for my specialties, autistic traits and poor motor skills. When I got to meet my biological father, he nearly lost it. She simply smoked and drank during pregnancy. Reply. Yeah, sorry, but your mom is trash for doing that. Reply 2. Ooh, this rings a similar bell with me. I was born with hydrocephalus, and at 3 months had to have a shunt fitted. Very fortunately, don't want to tempt fate, but it's caused me few problems and affects my life in no way whatsoever. Modern medicine, I thank you. However, my mum never ever bothered to tell me I had a shunt fitted. She told me the large scar on my scalp was from an accident. Truth only came out when I needed a grown-up shunt at age 10 because the original was a child's one. Bit of a shock for me at the time, terribly scared, but shunt got replaced and all was well. My mum hated me discussing my shunt. The most she ever said was that she felt, but couldn't prove, that my delivery by forceps was to blame for the condition. Years later I discovered my mum didn't give up smoking for even a day during her pregnancy, and actually I figured that had potentially more to do with it than delivery by forceps. I never gave this much thought before. Sometimes you only put the pieces together in middle age. Story 6. The house I grew up in, all the rooms had different colored walls. The living room was blue, the kitchen was yellow, one of the bedrooms was green, etc. My mom has always hated white walls and still does till this day for some reason. About a year ago my mother told me that the entry hallway room was painted red because my dad once stabbed my mom in the lung with a screwdriver and she couldn't get the blood out. So while me and my sister wasn't there, she got the walls painted in a hurry to cover up the blood. I lived in that house for 10 years growing up without knowing. Reply. Okay, what the hell? There is more story to it. Okay to share? OP reply. I actually don't know that else there is to say. My parents never really got along that well, and after my dad went to war, 3 times in total, he had severe anger issues and began to drink, probably PTSD, but he never got it diagnosed. They became a couple as teenagers, and after getting me at 20 and my little sister at 22, they got separated when I was 4 years old, probably because of my dad's bad behavior. He apparently also cheated on my mom according to my mom, and because they weren't good for each other in general. So the stabbing incident happened before that. After they got separated, I never really saw my dad until he committed suicide when I was 10, actually on this very day 16 years ago. So I lived with my mom until I got taken away by the Child Protective Services at 13 years old and never moved back. It's probably not hard to imagine that my childhood sucked, and so did my relationship to my mother, who I went no contact with this year since she's not good for me and my mental health. Story 7. Throwaway account for reasons that will become obvious. My Irish uncles were all businessmen who, generally, ran legitimate operations but, truly, and I mean truly, believed that if you could outwit someone, whatever you could take from them was earned. As you might imagine, this led to other, more creative enterprises, one of which was an underground bar and gambling operation. One day, a guy who owed my uncle a lot of money on some gambling debts decided it would be more expedient to stab him. So, he came in and stabbed him 28 times. I was 14 at the time and was the one who found my uncle. I ran for help. It was awful. My uncle, an incredibly tough guy, lived though. He thought the 28 wounds were symbolic and kept saying over and over, 28 times he stabbed me, 28 times. 1 year and 1 day later, these guys were obsessed with numbers and numerology and other hoodoo claptrap. One of my uncles comes and gets me out of bed in the middle of the night. He gave me whiskey for the first time and wouldn't even tell me where we were going. All of my uncles and some well-trusted workers kidnapped that guy, gave him exactly 366 wounds, the last one a shot in the back of the head. It was important, implacably essential to them that I saw all of this, I guess to show me since I was the one who found Uncle Jack. They dismembered his body and spent the rest of the night burning the parts to ashes on a roaring fire in a giant grill, like to roast a whole hog, at a cabin where they'd killed him. Then, they scattered the ashes to the 4 winds of heaven. It was already daylight when my uncle drove me back home, so the craziest part of this story is that I took a shower and went to school. Reply. This guy wins this thread. No competition. Reply 2. I believed this until the bit about an Irishman taking a shower. Then I knew it was BS. The end. Subscribe for more. Thank you.